All right, introduce yourself.
My name is Tristan, Tristan, Taylor, Taylor. I'm with the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action, Integration, and Immigrant Rights, and Fight for Equality by Any Means Necessary, also known as BAMN.
Excellent. Well, first of all, let's get started on how you became an activist. What was the precipice moment for you that made you go in from just a regular kid playing video games to, really becoming somebody who's trying to make the world better?
I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
The short version is I was a person who was always interested in reading, who went to school in the suburbs of Michigan, suburbs of Detroit, moved back to Detroit, and saw and experienced firsthand like segregation and inequality that it breeds. When I was 16, followed the 2000 presidential elections really closely and was hugely disappointed with Al Gore's inability to defend the black voters of Florida from being disenfranchised. It was around that time that I began looking for an alternative. Was a person who was very interested in going to college and just having a future. So I thought I should have one. And so the issue of affirmative action was really important to me, and got involved in BAMN in defending affirmative action when I was 17 as part of me looking for something outside of the Democratic Party or the traditional channels of protests and whatever.
Well, I certainly feel you there. It's definitely, the mainstream politicians and the whole political system is so screwed up. It's pretty clear that it's designed to keep things the same. It's not really designed to change anything. So now, I guess it was basically what you're saying is kind of the precipice that kind of moved you into wanting to change the world is just the situations around you trying to get your education?
And part of that, absolutely. And it was just, knowing that I had a future or should have a future, but recognizing the obstacles against that and around that, and just wanting to make a serious fight not only for myself but for like my community. I actually went to school at McKenzie High School, not too far from the location that we're at. And so, I've seen, the best and the brightest, of students, talent squandered by the lack of resources that we had. And it always bothered me. And so the opportunity to, build a real movement that can change all of that was something that, especially after the disappointment in the Democrats and Al Gore, I searched for and looked for. My first action was actually, getting a busload of students from my high school to Ann Arbor as part of the first national conference that BAM held in 2001.
Well, that's awesome. Was that would you say that was a life-changing experience?
Absolutely.
To get that accomplished?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, with recent events, actually, it occurred to me when you talked about your position. What do you think of this? The congressman or maybe it was a state senator who made that comment. We've gotten the voter ID thing through. This will allow Romney to get elected. Done or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. Are you familiar with that? The whole voter ID thing that they think they're targeting minorities.
We're just seeing what I would describe as the policies of the new Jim Crow. And it's not just about voting rights. I mean, in terms of voter ID, in Michigan, majority black cities don't even have the democratic right to vote for their own school board. In Detroit, we have a city council that's essentially mute because all decisions are made through appointed councils from the state.
Because of that fascist Governor Snyder stuff that is not getting enough attention.
Sure. I mean, it's that's capitalism at its best. It's like democracy when it can afford it, and when it can't and think it's a problem, it takes it away. And so we're seeing, and experiencing a lack of democracy everywhere. And, it's not just the Republicans that are, putting forward that grand old perspective of democracy being this outworn, outused thing. Because, it was Granholm, that lovable liberal, that first installed the emergency managers for Detroit Public Schools and for the city of Pontiac and other places.
I didn't know that.
So, the idea and notion that we are experiencing attacks on democracy, is, there's a moment in history that we can draw a parallel, and that is the Jim Crow South, because we are seeing, policies like that being instituted in the United States, especially towards immigrant communities as well.
Wow. Well, Now that Occupy Detroit, has started, have you noticed anything since obviously you were an activist before Occupy? What would you say that Occupy Detroit and just the Occupy movement in general has done to change the paradigm for activism?
I think what Occupy Detroit created was an opportunity for people who were not drawn in to the official excuses of inequality and oppression, who wanted to show their solidarity with the oppressed and also recognizing the truth and wanting to stand on the truth. Occupy Detroit created an opportunity where, people outside of Detroit were prepared to build a movement along with Detroiters to not only stop the attack on Detroit, but because they knew Detroit was the future for the state, making sure that they were, and so fighting for Detroit, fighting to make sure the rest of the state of the nation was moving forward towards progress.
Now, does BAM have chapters in other states too? Is that like is it a nationwide, worldwide?
It's a national organization.
National organization.
Our main strongest chapters in Michigan and California. We're definitely looking to expand as much as we possibly can. We've done work, in Missouri and Chicago and Texas. We're just looking for more opportunities to be a national organization because we know the importance of not only just dealing with these issues like locally and statewide, but these attacks that we're experiencing in Michigan is part of a national policy.
Absolutely. Now, if someone wants to learn more, where should they go?
Well, they can go to www.BAMN.com. On that website, everything about us is there. If you want to know about BAM, there's a ton of shit on there about our victories, our struggles, our perspectives of how to move things forward. Even, obviously how to get in touch with us if you're interested in joining BAM, want to find out more information. There's even a phone number that you can call on there.
Well, thanks again for being on, man. If you could say one thing right now to 300,000 people all around the world who listen to this radio show, what would you say?
Well, look into BAM, join BAM, and because we can build a movement that puts the oppressed in power. I'm really confident in that, but that means, telling the truth about racism, understanding the necessity of organizing young people, having young people in the lead, and believing that the oppressed have power. I'm optimistic about the future.
Sure.
But on the basis that there's a real perspective that can allow the majority of society to move and build struggle in their own name.
That's excellent, and thanks for doing the work that you're doing. It's definitely inspiring to the people of the world. Thanks for being on V-Radio.
Thanks.